Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Hey, welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matt Shiles, who we're kind of separated at the moment because I'm in CA, which is California. No, I'm not orbiting the Earth. Matt told me I needed a background because he didn't want me to show my dirty bed in the background.
It was made, though.
It was made. And it's 7:00 here, so I've been up pretty early. I actually thought I would try to sleep in which that didn't happen. So I'm like, well, let me get up. So a lot of bags in my eyes. So if you're watching this via YouTube, you see my bags.
Is that because you're getting older? You can't sleep in anymore?
No, what? No, I mean it's just 3 hours difference.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
did you get a workout in?
Not this morning. No, okay. I did yesterday. I did go for the very first time. I went to downtown Disneyland. So we have Disney Springs.
Yeah.
They have the downtown Disney district. Ours is better, just by the way.
Oh, is it? Is it bigger?
Yeah, ours is bigger. Everything in Florida is bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. So what are you in California for?
I'm speaking at chapel today at Biola and Talbot. So they do like a combined chapel. So Ed Stetzer, who came in a couple weeks ago, he is the dean of the Talbot School of Theology. And I have the privilege of speaking in their chapel. So I'm out here speaking at chapel here in a couple hours and talking about God's glory in creation and mission. So
I guess the background is pretty fitting.
It is pretty fitting. That's why I chose it. There's a subtle reason why I did. Out of the 5 choices that I had, there's it.
So my question is: are you going to be teaching or are you going to be preaching?
Probably because it's more of an academic setting. Probably teaching with maybe a glimpse of preaching in there. I'm starting out by saying, how many of you feel like or have ever felt like life is like getting a surprise box at IKEA and you dump it all out and there's no instructions but one tool? And you're like, here it is. You don't know, because I think even for Christians who would say, all right, we know the box is about God's glory. Okay, well, how do you put that together?
Oh.
And that's where when you look at creation and embedded in creation is God's mission, it really then begins to make sense of God's glory in creation and mission. And so we're going to try to put together the surprise IKEA box and hopefully fit everything in within a 20-minute section.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Well, I got 25, but probably will take me 3 to 5 minutes to set up the IKEA example.
Sure.
So,
awesome. Yeah. And then you're back tomorrow.
Then I head to the airport and make that big trek home over the U.S.
And then the next week we'll be in Ireland, so we'll be doing an Extra Takes next week, probably from there.
In Dublin.
Don't say that.
All right, Dublin. It's like Bogota.
We're just making friends all over the world.
It's endearing.
So you're gonna be teaching a little bit, but this weekend you were preaching because you got your heart rate up, didn't you? You had a workout in.
I did get a workout in. So this is interesting because I started wearing a Whoop. I was about you beat me to it.
Did.
When I got home, my stress load, and it's one of the things I like about the Whoop, because it gives me a little bit more data. So my stress load was like at a 12 to 13. And so I said, hey, will you put my Sunday morning basically preaching rhythm, will you put it in an exercise? Will you put it in an exercise metric? So just on a Sunday, this doesn't include Saturday. Sunday preaching twice, being available and engaging in ministry is like me going out and running for an hour and a half at a zone 2, zone 3 level. So that's
Wow.
like me going at, a 10 and a half minute pace for an hour and a half. That's what the preaching load is like. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Mine was a little different when I preached.
Oh, yeah.
It was like the same. My heart rate didn't get above like 115, I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It was about the same of when I practiced in the empty room, and
Right.
it was about the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am more of a teacher than a
Yeah.
preacher. Well, let's get into this weekend because this was the last weekend of Breakthrough.
Yep.
This was a great series. I'd love for us to just spend a little time reflecting on this week, but also spending some time just reflecting on this series and every series. At the end of it, it's always helpful to look back on some takeaways. But a series like this, where we're really trying to set up the next year, it feels obviously it's foundational in a bit of a launching off point for us. So this is a series that every series at the beginning of the year is would be helpful for us to go back to and rewatch and brush up on some of the takeaways. So we'll do a little bit of that this morning. But we were in Nehemiah again. This is February 21st and 22nd. And I'll give us the definition of breakthrough, and then I'll give us a bit of the outline. So the definition is breakthrough is when your faithful movement brings a sudden moment of forward momentum for you to continue living out your God-given purpose. And you gave us a summary leading up to this week. So we had a breakdown, breaking point, and then winning the wars. And this weekend, you talked about how do you know you've experienced breakthrough, and we looked at markers of breakthrough, and then we looked at this forward momentum. And you gave us a nice warning. Hey, I'm going to spend 95% of the time on the markers, so don't get scared. I think that's always very helpful. There are some people that kind of look back at the clock, right? You can see them. Depending on where you're situated in the room, you may be able to say, "Uh-oh, he's got 5 more minutes left. This is making me nervous." You gave us a good warning.
I did.
So let me look at these markers and then we'll dig into them. First marker was a miraculous movement. Second marker was won the wars. Third is unique unity. Fourth is revival of word and wall. And then you have Jesus's joy, where you jigged. I was very thankful that you didn't pull something or fall or so good job. But let's start by just asking what's a word, one word to describe this week?
One word to describe this week. Maybe just grateful that it's done.
That's my favorite one yet. So tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, because it's a series. I mean, again, it's a series casting vision. So it's not like it's come to fruition yet. So I'm grateful that it's
Mm.
done, and now we can just, I would say sit and wait, but we don't sit and wait, but that we can continue to be faithful in our movement. So I'm grateful. I mean, like I'm grateful. I mean, it's really tough stuff. I guess where like anytime I'm having to preach something tough, I'm kind of usually grateful that it's done.
Well, because you're not just living in that tension for a week or a couple weeks. I mean, you've been thinking and planning on this for months.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, because I started reading on Ezra and Nehemiah probably last summer. Yeah. So just like laying, kind of laying the foundation. But yeah, so grateful. I think God did. I mean, it seems like God used it individually for people and
Yeah.
families. I hope He does. I mean, obviously, I hope He does.
Mm.
use it for our church. It's so hard because I don't want to. There's always that tension because I want to say more, but I don't want it to come across as shaming. So a lot of times I back off. How many of us actually really come to gather with the church hoping that God would do something amazing in and through us? It's just something that Americans do. And so when I that's what kind of really I'm grateful it's over, but maybe the other, I'm burdened. Maybe that's another word. That I'm burdened. Did we really get it from a corporate standpoint? And I think we did, and that's where I was grateful that people responded at the end. And this is the part, like, you respond, but will you keep responding? That's breakthrough. Will you respond, but will you keep responding?
Yeah.
And so that's where kind of grateful burden, because I do think that the majority of churches, in America, we have a lot of people, in some sense in attendance, but not in a posture of, God, will you do something in and through us where really you only get the glory, where you only get the credit, where we break through, where there's this forward momentum, that there's not just this comfort and convenience, there's not just this routine, there's not just and so, but that will you really do something miraculous? And I mean, that's what we see with Nehemiah. Now, interestingly, with Nehemiah and God's people, I mean, there is this breakthrough, but there's not this when I say there's not this breakaway. And what I mean by breakaway, I mean, like, they just soar. I mean, they do break through 140, 150 years of just ruin. I mean, but here's the thing, like, breakthrough doesn't mean a lot of times, like, even your environment might change. I mean, because Persia was still in charge. They still didn't have a country, still didn't have a nation. But there's this element, and I talked about, I did a series years ago, that wasn't breakthrough, but it was something else around this idea of like breaking away.
Break out, right?
It was a breakout. Because you go to a whole nother level, and that's actually what. So the Jews actually had to wait till Jesus came in order to break out, to go to a whole nother level. But nevertheless, Nehemiah, and that's the whole idea of breakthrough, is that there is this movement, even in the intertestamental period, where there is some kind of restoration of mission. Now they do take it too far with the Pharisees. Pharisees didn't exist in Nehemiah's day, or even prior to Nehemiah's day. So they come in what we call the intertestamental period between the Old Testament and the New Testament. So they do take it a little bit further, but the whole reason why they took it further is because they wanted to protect holiness. So it was really born out of Nehemiah and this idea, hey, we need to be holy. They just take it too far, So, but nevertheless, I mean, you do see this incredible forward momentum, from Nehemiah, for them to continue to live out, God's, for them to live out God's mission and purpose in their life. Like, in fact, when Jesus says that, to the woe to you, you'll cross land and sea to go make a proselyte. Well, in the Old Testament, they weren't doing that. I mean, so there is a resurgence, even again, a glimpse of it in, kind of in the intertestamental period, and it came from this revival. It came from this breakthrough. So so I use a lot of times I use contextual. I'll use contextual words to describe spiritual reality. So what you do see is a revival. So here's the thing: a revival isn't just something that happens in a congregation. It's not just something that happens in a gathering. It does break through, and it does start impacting life and starts impacting them spiritually, socially, and culturally. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking for right now, and these kind of like these spurts of, like, kind of stirrings is what I would call them, awakenings, even around college campuses. Like, that's not a revival. That's not a revival. Now, it could be the beginning of a revival. It could be the sparks of it, because I did a whole message on that, a while back. But anyways, that's just my thoughts about breakthrough. That I'm burdened, but I'm grateful, and I'm now waiting in great anticipation to see what God will do.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that this is a few weeks at the beginning of the year, but it's not meant to be the end, and it's meant to be the launching off point. Yeah, so I just wonder how we continue to revisit that throughout the year so that we don't forget, because we are leaky vessels and we forget, and we very much can live in a culture of just on to the next, and
Yeah.
And yeah, so for us individually and us corporately, to make sure we, like you said, make sure we got it. I think that's an ongoing process.
Yeah. Well, and in some sense, maybe to skip towards the end of the message, though, just here, if you got it, here's what I would say: if you got it, and you were one of the ones that said you're all in, and maybe those who listen to Extra Text are the ones who are all in. Hey, that's great. Will you be a catalyst that maybe move 1, 2, or 3 other people to be all in? So don't just celebrate the fact that you're all in. Hey, won't you bring some other people along? So that could be, hey, bring 1 or 2 along in serving, because this goes back to even what Ed preached a couple of weeks ago, is that we do need to be, we need all hands on deck. That's what we see with Nehemiah. That's the idea of unique unity. All hands were on deck. Now, we don't know if those leaders from Tekoa, we don't know if they ever pitched in, but man, everybody's pitching in. Everybody is coming together to see the wall being built. And so I'd love to see more and more, Northlanders really step up and serve. And, what we're still doing is we're working behind the scenes too, of, making sure that we are creating good systems to get you plugged into serving.
Yeah.
We're also making sure that over time that we're creating, kind of environments where you can use your giftedness, your even vocational giftedness. Now, that takes time. Because one of the things that I talk about when it comes to serving in the church, that there are 3 big buckets of serving. There are areas of necessity, like we just need everybody. So like children's ministry, student ministry, those are areas of necessity, because that's part of our ministry model, is that we want to be able to engage kids, be able to engage students and young adults. And so maybe you do have a natural gifting in that area, but here's the thing: if we don't have people to serve back there, we don't grow. So if we don't have people to serve back there, we don't grow. If we don't have people to serve back there, we don't break through. Let's put it that way. So that's an area of necessity. Ushering, greeting, being hospitable, welcoming. Hey, if we don't have people there, we don't grow. If we don't have people there, we don't break through. So those are areas of necessity. Then there's areas of natural gifting, and so and that's part of where we're working on a just little brief, kind of almost like a brief assessment to see what your area of natural gifting may be, and then to provide you a list of all the ways you could use your natural gifting at Northland. And then there are areas of nurturing, and then so here's the thing: everybody ought to be filling the areas of necessity, natural gifting, and nurturing. So nurturing is just caring for one another. So that's part of where, like, if you're serving in an area, hey, well, you just keep your eyes out to see who might need some nurture. If you're in a small group, just keep your eyes out who might need some nurturing. So because here's the thing is, if you're in a family, and let's say your mom and or dad, you don't look at your kid like, man, you're sick, but I'm telling you, my area of gifting is not nurture, so I'm very sorry, you just have to sit in bed. We don't do that. No, we nurture to the best of our ability, even though it might not be a natural. Mercy might not come natural but nurturing is warranted. So,
Mm.
and that's what we see in Nehemiah, is that you have, man, it's just necessary to rebuild the wall. Like, you might not be skilled with a wrench, you might not be skilled with a sword, but by golly, you're going to have both of them in your hand, right? And so then there's areas of natural gifting. Sure, there's some people that it seems like Nehemiah is this natural born leader, even though that wasn't his position. So he's filling that natural role, and then and then you do see elements, and then you have this area of nurturing, that they're loving one another, they're
Mhm.
forgiving one another, they're restoring child and land back to their brothers and sisters. So I mean, so you do see all three of those in Nehemiah. That's where we could go. I could spend months and dig even deeper. So when I do 4 weeks, like that, again, you're just scratching the surface of even though I still go a little, still go deep,
Yeah,
but you're only scratching the surface of those things.
it is interesting because you could probably spend the whole year in various ways, but
Oh,
there's the balance of you know
yeah.
yeah, just there's just that balance. You're gonna lose people and all of that, but that AI picture of you with the sword and the wrench. So I got your I got your slideshow ahead of time, your Canva ahead of time, and I saw that picture. I almost messaged you and said, "Did you really create
I
that?"
didn't, man. Seriously, I did not create this. Somebody sent that to me.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's pretty good though.
And then some engineer texted me and said, "What are you doing with that kind of wrench for that kind of project?" And it's like, well, listen, I would have never even thought about the different kind of wrenches.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Coming from a guy that, oh yeah, the putty knife. I think that's what we were trying to figure out the couple weeks ago.
yeah. Somebody came up to me and said, "It is not a putty spatula." I was like, "Yeah, I got that." Maybe that's what I need to do next time I'm flipping pancakes, is pull out my putty spatula and say, "It can be a putty spatula. It can be."
Oh man, so you already mentioned a unique unity. Um, I love the circles that you brought up in the different areas in our life. You gave a marriage example, you gave a stewardship example, but that visual showed us this distance divides, and really the idea is you're looking for all of these circles, the distance to be getting closer and closer. It's interesting to look at and to think about what that would look like in our families or what that would look like in our church.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think it may be hard for us to describe, but it feels like it's something when it happens, you know it.
Well, yeah, it's a marker, right? It's a
When it
marker.
happens, you know it, and you just go, "This is unique. This
Yeah.
isn't normal."
Like, yeah, or this is what it should be like.
Yeah, but it's not always like this, right?
Right.
Like I
Well,
don't
because
see
it
it.
hasn't been, and that was again, that's the whole point, is it hasn't
Yeah,
been in centuries for Israel.
yeah.
And then when it happens, you're like, yeah, this is different. This is unique. And but that there's this coming together, this coalescing, you
Mm,
know. And I think that's a really, it's funny because I talk to counselors now because I'm friends with them. And I'm telling you, these are great tools for counselors, because
yeah.
what you're trying to find is, like, you could do it with body, soul, and mind. Your body
Mm,
feels this, but your mind's thinking
yeah,
this. Your soul's here. How do you bring them together? God wants you to be whole.
yeah.
You can do it for health. You're here. Your health's here, but this is what God wants you. How do and then that's where you're figuring out that distance that divides. And
Mm,
again, but that's part of that faithful movement, is that you're figuring it out. You're making the strides to
mm,
actually close the gaps.
mm.
And again, that's not, here's the thing. Ultimately, you're not winging that. Nehemiah is not winging
Yeah.
that.
Mm,
But what you do have is you have that God, he's been at work for actually decades here, because you have Zerubbabel, who had left. Gosh, I mean, decades, like probably 90 years earlier,
Mm.
something like that. Because he came 70 years after the exile, and then he's the one rebuilding he's the one rebuilding the temple, but nothing happened. And then decades later, that's when Ezra comes and he kind of kickstarts the temple, but it, it doesn't really it doesn't flourish. It doesn't really come together. And then it's another 10, 15 years that Nehemiah comes, and then everything comes together. So there is this, again, it's the faithful movement, it's the progression, it's God at work behind the scenes, but everything is coming together in its proper place and in God's timing. So that's part of that faithful movement. And again, that's part of the deeper part that I just don't have time to
Yeah.
talk about, because yes, I mean, God's been working. People have been at least showing up. Things just have not fully come together. And what you see with Nehemiah is that they really do fully come together. And there's that unique unity that they were one. And the last time they were one like that was in the days of Solomon. I mean, that's wild. I mean,
Yeah.
we even read the one part of the passage where they haven't celebrated a festival like that since the days of Joshua, before they were even a nation.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, this is the struggle of God's people.
Yeah. When all they know, all that those generations know is something vastly different from who they who they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's look at the next point, the revival of word and wall. I think you got maybe most excited. Oh, maybe you got most excited about this one, and then the jog to you, Jake. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But you gave us these two principles, and one of them was the broken areas of your life can be a reflection of your broken commitment to the word. That's hard.
That's hard. Oh gosh, I listen. Yeah, well, the reason why it was one of my, well, probably my favorite, is because I think it's the one that's most neglected in our life.
Yeah.
Is that we want unity, we pray for unity, we hope that things are
Mm.
brought back together, reconciled, restored, renewed. But I don't know if we go underneath the hood on the diagnostic part
Hmm.
and actually see that really a lot of the areas that we're in need of breakthrough is because we just have a broken down commitment or a broken understanding of what God's word says. I do
Hmm.
think that that's most of the cases. I think that's 99.9% of the cases of churches that are in need of breakthrough. Is that, I mean, and again, I didn't want to say this from the stage because, again, don't want to, like, when a church goes from 10,000 down to what Northland did, something's gone terribly wrong. And it wasn't because somebody made a mistake. It's because there has been a broken commitment to the word. And so, again, I didn't want to say that from the stage because I don't want people to think that I'm in some sense finger pointing. I'm just wanting to
Yeah.
state the obvious, is that don't sit there and think that, oh, it's just bad luck, or we just had a string of bad years. No, you need to go back. What does the word say, and are we doing what the word says? That's the reason why that churches, when they have years of decline and maybe infighting and kind of a loss of whatever, theological integrity, or loss of passion for lost people, you need to have a really come to Jesus moment of, and again, you got to go back to the breakdown, right? You got to go back to the breakdown. Nehemiah is broken down because he understands that the reason why the wall's still broken down and the people still live in disgrace is because of this thing called sin. And so he's the one confessing, and he's confessing for all of his people. He is interceding, and so this is part of where, listen, you've got to run the diagnostic of the heart, whether that's an individual
Yeah.
heart, whether that's a corporate heart. And that's where I just feel like a lot of times when we need breakthrough, we're not running the diagnostics of our heart and
Mm.
understanding that there is a broken commitment to the word of God.
Yeah.
Would you? So, I mean, you've lived through. I mean, you've been at Northland for how long?
10 years. On staff, 10 years.
Yeah, but how long you been at Northland?
Since 2006.
So
Long
you know
time.
yeah, long time. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting point about commitment to the word and understanding the word because you may think that both of those are the same, but actually that's because there could have been times in the past where we said, yeah, we're committed to the word, right? But the distance between commitment and understanding um probably was greater than many realized, right? But then obviously as there's infighting, it's always easier to recognize someone else's lack of commitment than your own
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
any areas of life. But when you're in it, even if you see it happening,
Well,
I
it's
mean,
like
it takes
boiling.
something drastic to, how do you fix it? It's
Well, I
just,
mean, but it's
yeah,
like boiling a frog.
yeah, yeah.
So but then this is part of where you measuring and having metrics, having your finger on the heart beat, the pulse is huge.
Sure.
But when leaders choose to do something that hurts the integrity and the mission of
Hmm.
God, like that's going to be on them too.
Hmm.
And I think that that happened in the past.
Hmm.
Um, and that, and again, this is part of where unhealthy things are unhealthy and they have unhealthy metrics, which is one of the reasons why, I got my Garmin and my Whoop because I want to be
Yeah,
healthy and
yeah,
I want it to measure the health. And that's part of what we have to
yeah.
do as a church because we know what unhealthy is, but if we don't have any metrics or
Hmm.
whatnot, and we can say, well, my heart's in the right place. Here's the thing: your heart could be in some sense, you could think that your heart is in the right place in terms of your understanding, but your execution is actually poor. Like, I want to be healthy. My heart's in the right place. I want to be healthy. But unless you discipline yourself, unless there's
To do it.
accountability and
Yeah,
there's execution, that does not happen. And
yeah,
that's what I've seen, that's what I see in churches all the time
yeah,
is that they mean well.
yeah.
But again, that's what we see in the Old Testament. There's a lot of meaning well, but there's a lot of
So
unwell.
much, so much. So that leads well to that fifth point about Jesus's joy. You maybe got the most animated for this one.
I probably did.
When you jog, you'll jig. But man, you're up there acting goofy, but you are making a theological point, and it is so deep. When you exercise the joy of God, you'll experience the joy in God. As a result, you'll expand joy to the world. Holy cow. That was like so theologically accurate. And I'm like, are people understanding what he just said? Because he's jump around the stage. You're trying to get your point across and you're trying to do it in a contextual way. And I really appreciate you not falling. Good job. But
You're
I was waiting for the chair just to
welcome.
fall.
Well, I wasn't using it that much.
It didn't go. Yeah, you didn't, you're a pretty athletic guy.
So,
So are
yeah.
you gonna do that? You gonna do that jump jig in Ireland? Are you gonna show them how it's done?
Well, yeah, we'll see. Because they want us to talk about Nehemiah. Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah. So
Isn't that amazing?
maybe I'll just pull that out and do four messages in one.
Hey, I'm here for it.
So,
You just take all day.
I mean, there are pastors. They are pastors. So, listen, if you can't absorb four messages in one, go do another. No, I'm sure that's probably it.
Bro.
Uh, so, yeah, the jog and jig, man. Like, um, yeah, that's that's deep. Um, because here's the thing: misery. You you waddle in your misery,
Hmm.
but you expand joy. And I think,
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
there are a lot of individuals where they're waddling in their misery and they're just trying to survive.
You're turned in, you're stationary, you don't move. Yeah, yeah.
But when you have joy, that really is unspeakable. You can't even really put words to it. There's just rejoicing that expands.
Yeah.
That reproduces. And and again, I'm just using Northland. I'm just, because, hey, listen, this extra takes, and, you can always push back, and people can always push back if they want to. I mean, they can send me an email. We can have a discussion about it. But when you're declining, there's not a lot of joy. And you have to figure out, why don't I have joy? So in the growing years, there's joy, expansion, growth.
Yeah.
But then when you hit, and the plateau doesn't last but 2 years. So the plateau basically lasts 2 years, and then there's this, not even I mean, it's a pretty, open faucet for, from 2010 to 2017. So just 7 years. There's no joy. There's no expansion. There's actually decline. There's actually closing. There's actually infighting. That's not the heart of God. And so I can tell you that God is not up in heaven, that the Holy Spirit isn't among us going, this is amazing. Like, there's no, God has no joy when his people do not exhibit his health, do not exhibit his character, his characteristics, his spirit. And when there's misery, there's just surviving, and there's management. And we see this, and even if you look at scientifically the life cycle of human beings and the life cycle of organizations, when it crosses the prime and it begins to age, then all you are doing is managing the death. There's no joy in managing the death. You're managing your symptoms. You're managing misery.
Yep.
And so that's what we see with Nehemiah, is they no longer are in disgrace. They are no longer in misery. They are now expanding joy beyond the walls of the city, even when they're still not in charge. So that's what I want. I see, and that's what I want for Northland. Like that's part of my burden. Like, do we have joy? Like, do we have joy where, man, you got to get here. You got to get here. Man, we got to get out there. Like, oh my gosh, we need to go there. We need to go there. We need to, like, people need this. People need this. Like, that's the expansion of joy. Again, that's part of where I don't see that yet. I don't see that yet. Do some people exhibit joy? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, on breakthrough, unique unity, word and wall come together, and there's this expansion of joy.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't manufacture it.
You cannot.
It's not helpful to manufacture it because it'll die.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, let's look at maybe last two questions that we'll kind of combine. I want us just to reflect on this final application that you walked us through as you encouraged us to go forward and put all in or respond in that way, and then just maybe connect that to just final reflections on this series as a whole.
Well, I'll flip it. Like, what do as someone observing, someone being at Northland since 2006, what are your observations of that? Well, what were your observations of the four things that I said?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get those by myself. I mean, the staff and I met, and I synthesized them.
Yeah. So the four things: we're still rebuilding ministry structures, we're surviving, fighting for unity, and expanding our missional joy. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this quite often. You have a pretty good grasp on what has been. You've talked to a lot of people. So anytime you're sharing it, it's fair. And it's actually helpful sharing it from an outside perspective. You know, when you live it, it's your viewpoint is skewed. And you also have the perspective of seeing other churches junk as well. And that was one of the, that was one of the helpful things about the pastor search, is as we were talking to other pastors, or even our the consultant that we were connecting with, he was like, Yeah, a lot of churches have junk, and you're not. We think we're fully unique, but as you see more, you see that there's some commonalities of sin and the way it rears its head in churches uniquely and within church staff and
Yep.
the overall. So yeah, I mean, for this series, I very much feel like, man, this is too big of a series to just feel like, oh yeah, 4 weeks and we've got it. Like there's so much going on in everybody's life. I've got a lot going on both at work and finishing up school, and this is very much a series that I'm just letting wash over me. But um, in order to really get it, like I have to revisit it.
Yeah.
I have to be reminded of it. I have to go back to it. That's true for anything, but anything that we're trying to create this long-lasting, nature, something that maybe even a posture. I think that's probably something that would be helpful is thinking of
Yeah.
this is a posture that we need to have. And it's not just 4 weeks. It's not even just a year. Obviously we're gonna have another word next year. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're not at the point and we do. You wouldn't do this, but maybe you do breakthrough again next year. I know we would do something different, but um, I mean, we're not guaranteed that things are gonna be healthy and solid and whole and moving in the right direction, just because time moves forward. Um, we have to collectively get it and um, individually and corporately. And that's
Yeah.
probably the other thing that I've been just dwelling on of I think for any message as I'm thinking about teaching and preaching more, but then specifically this series helped me with that was the interesting connection between individual and corporate application.
Yeah.
And this was very much, I think it was so personal that you had to really focus on the individual a lot, but um, continually, as staff, as hey, Extra Take listeners, you guys are all in. You're part of the corporate movement. Like we all have to take that to heart that this is more than just how do we personally apply it. This is how do we corporately, and it's going to take all of us. I mean, that was the message of in Nehemiah. It's going to take all of us, and that does not just include you. That does not just include the senior leadership or the elders or the staff. That includes all of us, and that's where just having a physical movement and the writing of the all in. I think that was symbolic and helpful um,
Yeah.
for us individually to see, but then it's always so encouraging to see others do the same.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
get to experience it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was encouraged by those who came forward. We've been going through well, I haven't been, but our team's been going through the cards, reading them. So very encouraged by, kind of
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a way for people to have like a corporate memory.
Yeah.
But also like kind of it's almost like here, the hymn says, "Here I raise my Ebenezer."
Mm,
And those are just stones of remembrance, and so this is basically a moment of a stone of remembrance. Is that,
yeah.
hey, yeah, I mean, I did, I wrote my name on a card. I said I was going to do this. I think even Gus had somebody says, hey, I've been giving my money to missionaries. Do I need to start giving my money, giving some money here? And well, what did the Lord say? But here's what I would, and one of the things I told Gus, I said, well, here you could have told him this. I mean, here's what Paul talks about in First Corinthians. He told the Corinthians, he's like, man, I had every right to ask for you to financially support me. And he began to throw out Old Testament references that you don't muzzle an ox as the ox works. You allow the ox to eat, and that the farmer, harvest. I mean, like, so he's saying, like, basically, I have every right to ask, but he's like, I chose not to because this was new territory of the gospel, and it's like I didn't want to hinder the work of the gospel, but so I was telling Gus, I said, you could have told the person, well, do you enjoy being fed by Northland? but yet you don't pay for the food that you eat at Northland? Okay, is that what so, like, so because part of, part of a person's giving to a corporate body is actually fueling the mission of God, which is holistic.
Yeah.
You're fueling the ministries. You're fueling what our missions activity is in. You're allowing pastors and leaders and directors, you're allowing them to focus on this full time. And so when you choose not to give, you actually hinder the work of God in a place and and among a people. And so and then this is also part of it is like, so I mean, I say this, and it's hard for me to say it, but I'm going to say it because I'm not trying to be prideful one bit. But I do believe that I think God works through me in preaching and teaching, and that I even have counselors that tell me that this is so rich. And so you usually have to pay $150 to $200 to get what you get every single Sunday or Saturday. And if you don't give jack squat, what are you like? But yet it's meaningful to you. What are you telling God? Like you're not even a consumer at that point, because here's the thing: consumers pay for services. So you're actually a thief. And I think there's a lot of believers that are thieves. And this is what Malachi says, that you rob God. You don't give to the work of God. And so therefore, when you don't give to the work of God, you rob him. And this is for believers, not an unbeliever. Okay. So if you're someone who doesn't trust Christ and you're listening to this, I want you to come to know Christ and let him work on your heart. And then you get to that point. But if you're a believer, this is what the Bible says: you give. And it's not just and the idea too is you just don't give, you actually generously give. So and then you got to chew on that one.
Well said. I think we're up against time. That's a good place for us to end.
Well, all right, Northland family and friends. Hey, expand joy. And a faithful movement, one foot in front of the other, getting up every day. Hey, and just being committed. Man, we'll put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to honor God with what I know. I'm going to ask him to give me more knowledge and understanding. And I'm just going to be obedient, one foot in front of the other. Well, Northland family and friends, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Extra Takes. Until next time, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.